Welcome back. The panel is with us from some secure and healthy undisclosed locations. Well, some of them are disclosed. NBC News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Andrea Mitchell, Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson, NBC News correspondent Carol Lee, and Hugh Hewitt, host on the Salem Radio Network. Andrea Mitchell, let me start with you. Here's what I learned, I think, from Dr. Birx. Number one, things are going to get worse in every metro area in the country, so hunker down. Number two, I'm not prepared to tell you my recommendations yet, but clearly new recommendations are coming. And number three, go find as many ventilators as you can because we're struggling. Andrea, what did you hear?
Exactly that. First of all, her recommendations clearly, and Dr. Fauci's, are going to be, you can't do this county by county approach. You can't end this, mitigate this by ending it on Tuesday after the 15 days. It has to be extended. Whether the president goes along with that remains to be seen. He did back down after a full day of confusion yesterday on whether or not he could have an enforced quarantine around the tri-state area around New York. And it was only after Governor Cuomo went on TV and said that this would be the federal government declaring war against the states that he finally backed down. And we saw Vice President Pence rushing into the White House unexpectedly, not scheduled, last night. And then, of course, the CDC put out what it is empowered to do, which is an emergency health declaration, but a travel warning, not a firm order. That said, I also think that what we're going to see is a reluctance to have FEMA take control. You twice asked Dr. Birx whether or not the government should be doing this and rationalizing it. We're reading about huge conflicts between the CDC and FEMA. It's still not being communicated well, and someone has to take charge and distribute it so that you don't have a Florida governor like Ron DeSantis, who's an ally of the president and whose phone call with him probably yesterday precipitated that emergency quarantine speculation, stopped the New Yorkers from coming here when it was this governor who let the beaches be filled with spring breakers. Individual governors seem to have better access.
Carol Lee, it does seem as if the quarantine back and forth yesterday and this issue about who takes the lead on finding ventilators, this is this whatever you want to call it, it's a choke point, whatever it is, between the states and the feds. We haven't unclogged that choke point yet.
No, and it was clear, Chuck, from your interview with Dr. Birx that they don't have an answer to this problem yet. And you've heard from a number of governors. Governor Whitmer just said to you, and Governor Cuomo has been saying this every day, that, you know, they want the federal government to step in to somehow kind of regulate this process because they're all competing against each other and it's causing a lot of problems. And you've seen Governor Cuomo specifically say that if that doesn't happen, then maybe states will try to come together and figure out their own way to alleviate this problem. But there is, you know, an ask for help from the federal government, and we could wind up seeing this being the issue like the ventilators were in the past week where the president finally moved on that. This could wind up being the thing that in this coming week that he finally moves on. Yeah.
Gene Robinson, you want to chime in?
Well, Chuck, it seems to me that, you know, what Vice President Pence and Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci and the task force is doing, the federal task force, is vitally important. It's been a little bumpy getting really taking off, but the states really need what the task force is doing. On the other hand, what the president is doing seems to me to be increasingly irrelevant and counterproductive. I mean, these sort of pronouncements that are then taken back or they just fall away. So whether he wants to open everything up again or not on Tuesday, it is kind of irrelevant. The governors aren't going to do that, and I think Americans realize they have by now a pretty deep understanding of what's going on, what's at stake, and what they should do. And I don't think anybody is raring to get out there again on Wednesday.
Hugh Hewitt, this is the time when I think someone like you or others would be saying, you know, the president needs to go get a retired general. Remember General Honore, Russell Honore, he ran down in the Gulf area. It feels like there needs to be a take charge personality here when it comes to this procurement issue.
Well, I think the take charge personality, Chuck, is in fact the president. I'm very impressed with the president. Eugene isn't. I'm very impressed with Andrew Cuomo. I'm very impressed with Gavin Newsom. I'm very impressed with Mike DeWine. The people I'm not impressed with, I'm not going to spend time slamming. I'm impressed with people who are exhibiting strong leadership. They're not always going to be right, but I also like the fact, the person I'm most impressed with, most Americans won't have heard it, Benny Gantz. He is the Israeli political leader who stepped back and laid down his ambitions to serve the common good in Israel and join Benjamin Netanyahu in a government. I think that's the moment we're in, where people have to lay aside their partisan differences and work. And I must say, Vice President Biden really impressed me by modeling the best answer most people can give. I don't have the information to answer the question you asked, Chuck. I thought, way to go, Mr. Vice President. If you get asked a question, don't shoot from the hip. I think most people need to hear that message.
Carolee?
Well, Chuck, one of the things that we've seen in talking to administration officials and other people around the president is that they're really worried that this push for him to open the economy up again is going to totally backfire on him, backfire on the country. It'll backfire on him politically. And the other thing that they want to do, and we should keep an eye on this because his 15-day deadline is coming up, and there's people around the president who are really urging him not to set another sort of deadline like that. He mentioned Easter. You saw them try to walk that back. The vice president and others saying that's aspirational. And now, he has to either say we're extending these measures that he had put into place 15 days ago, we're modifying them. But whatever he does, his advisors do not want him to set another date.
I'll tell you, the straightest talk you could give to Americans is probably not to set a date, because all of us then would tell you what that means, that we're going to be here a while anyway. But I have to take a break. When we come back, Democrats and Republicans are actually experiencing the coronavirus outbreak right now differently, and how that plays a role in how they judge the government's response. Stick around. Hello from Washington, I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe, and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.